And welcome back to my channel. As you may have noticed, I have a baby now, and she will stay with me today as long as she behaves herself. Honestly, the main change to my life that this has made is the fact that now I have to stay at home, and especially in the postpartum period, I've been lying on the couch for a week and a half, and it's been pretty boring. Honestly, bed rest has been one of my greatest fears, weirdly enough, and I've made a video before, I think I called it like the fear of stillness, kind of explaining that I really hate things to be still and quiet, and that is kind of a problem because in the Christian life, being able to be still and quiet before God is kind of important. If I am always being so loud, like how am I ever supposed to hear him speak? And I think I mentioned in that I feel like the crux of why that's hard for me is that I'm afraid that if I am quiet and I'm listening for him or I'm asking him for something, like I'm not gonna hear an answer. And so it's easier to stay busy and distracted and just fill it up with all of my words and never really stop to be still and listen, because I'm so afraid that there's not really gonna be any response. And that's something that I don't want to face is that fear that like God isn't there or wasn't paying attention or doesn't care and isn't speaking to me. And so my midwife told me I am supposed to rest. That was very disappointing to me because I really did not want to. And then I was also afraid of the rest of my life now being me in the house, often by myself. Even when I would just have my one day off from work, that was always really difficult for me to keep myself occupied, to enjoy being at home, because I feel this need to be moving. I really feel like I am one of those people that, like, not that I feel worthless if I'm not producing something, but it's just like I get stressed out if I'm not producing something or not talking to someone or not connecting with anyone. Like if there's nothing to do and it's just me, that terrifies me because I hate being alone. That's the fear that I have of being like at the house or like on bed rest or whatever with like nothing in particular to do to distract myself, that it is just, I am just going to find myself alone. No one to talk to, no meaningful connection, nothing meaningful to do, just trying to amuse myself, which sounds like torture to me. I hate that. It's just so hard for me to be with myself. And the whole thing here is that I am not alone. Like God is with me, and that is the deepest relationship and connection that I could ever desire. That is the most meaningful relationship that I could ever pursue, and just being with him is the most meaningful thing that I could ever do. And yet it's so hard for me to do that. It's so hard for me to quiet myself and be okay with the small things, because I feel like if I'm not going out there and doing stuff, how am I going to be growing? Like how am I supposed to be learning things? How am I supposed to be moving forward and changing as a person? How am I supposed to be encountering God? How am I supposed to be learning things about him and loving his people and being changed more into his image? And I feel like the last week or so, God has really challenged me in that long lost art of meditation to just be able to be still and be with him and remember that I'm meant to experience him, that I want my soul to feel his love and his presence, that I want it to be this deep communing, like in John 15 where it talks about the vine and the branches, like abide with me. And I feel like that's something that's very hard for me, to just stay in the presence of God and be still and try to experience him in the moment, because I'm so afraid that I won't hear anything. So I like to do my journaling of what I feel like he said to me the day before, and that feels good to like put down into words of like, okay, I feel validated, I feel like I did have this experience with God, he was with me yesterday, he did speak to me, and then that encourages me in this day to walk forward and expect him to meet me again and teach me something new. But if I sit down there and I don't really know what to say, that just really throws me off, and then I feel like I don't know how to have my quiet time after that. Like I don't know what to do instead of that. Like I don't know how to just sit with God and experience him in that moment instead of just drawing on these experiences from yesterday to write about, to convince myself that he's still here and still moving. So I feel like he's been inviting me to experience him in the moment, to go slowly and to seek his presence now, and that I don't have to have a ton of words for that, that I can just sit and experience his love and his spirit. And like there are things that you can't put into words, things that you can't describe, things that you can't tell to somebody else or even explain to yourself the next day, but to just open my heart up to him and experience him in ways that I really haven't been able to before, because I've been so afraid of the quietness and so afraid of the stillness and so afraid of shutting down all of my thoughts and just bringing my heart before him and just sitting there, because I'm afraid he's not going to say anything and I'm not going to feel anything and I'm going to feel so abandoned and rejected. And yet he is so faithful to meet me there, and I feel like he really has been teaching me how to be okay with being quiet, and especially with like reading my Bible and just going slowly, taking a few verses and just reading those over and over and thinking thinking about them and feeling them. And I don't have to come away with a specific lesson or a new insight or some epiphany. Sometimes it really is just the words on the page are the words that I'm supposed to carry away, and I just have to sit there long enough to let them matter to me again, to be humble enough to be affected by these truths. So like, yeah, I already know. I've read this passage a billion times because I've been reading my Bible since I was old enough to read. And yet I want it to be that I never lose the wonder of just the simpleness and the foundations of my relationship with God. And so whether that is like the simple truths found in the Bible of just sitting there until they affect me, or whether that really is just grounding myself again in his love every day. I feel like that's what I keep coming back to, and that keeps being the center of my quiet time now. Like there's not a whole lot that I'm doing and no one that I'm really talking to like have new thoughts or insights or experiences. Like there's not a whole lot of stimuli in my life now. And yet that doesn't mean that my relationship with God now has to suffer and that I'm not going to be able to experience him. Like I'm learning to experience him in new ways, deeper ways, different ways, and that's good. And I feel like I keep coming back to just the simple fact that he loves me, and just trying to let that affect me, and just remembering how deep of a relationship I have with him and all the things that we've shared and how much he understands me, and just trying to bring my heart to him every day and not needing words to describe that, not really needing a lesson that I took away from that, but just letting the experience of him be enough. And really, like, isn't that the whole point of our relationship with God anyway, is a relationship and like experiencing him, not it just being having all of this head knowledge and all of these cool facts about the Bible or facts about him or like facts about the Christian life and walk. Like it needs to be something personal. It needs to be something that I've experienced. It needs to be something written deep into the story of my soul, not just these things that I can spout off, not being these quantifiable things in these words only. And that needs to be mixed with the unquantifiable, the quiet, like the things that you can't describe. So yeah, I feel like I've been coming to a place of being okay with the wordlessness of some parts of my relationship with God, and just remembering that he loves me. And that has been so encouraging. Like whenever I feel like the quietness and the stillness and not really knowing what to do with myself is oppressive and starting to stress me out and make me claustrophobic and put me in a bad mood and maybe like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, just remembering that he loves me, just bringing myself back to what I felt that morning in my quiet time seems to be such a remedy for that. Just knowing that I am so deeply seen and loved, because that's what I feel like we're all searching for, is that deep connection, that being seen and being known and being so fully loved. And so remembering that that's true for me right now, wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, really helps me slow down, helps me calm down, and helps me to learn how to be in the moment and just be with God throughout my day. Yes, just letting the fact that he loves me be enough, and let that be the starting point of my quiet time every day, and just coming back to that very basic truth and realizing how much it matters, how much it affects me, how much everything else depends on that, and how important it is to have a very solid understanding and experience of that. I really like the verse in Ephesians chapter 3 verse 17. Says, and I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. And I feel like that's what I've been experiencing, is just being overwhelmed by his love. And I want to be rooted and established in that. Like I want that to be the center from which everything else flows. I mean, that really is the starting point. Read 1 John, you'll see how important it is to understand that God loves us, and that that's how we learn to love him and how we love others, and how loving others proves to us that we love God, and that's how we know that we follow him and love him. It's just, it all comes back to just the fact that God loved us first, and understanding that and being able to abide in that. And that's in John 15 too, like remain in my love. I'm not perfect at it yet, and that's okay. That's another thing too, is not being all stressed out about not having perfectly learned this lesson, and it not just being super easy to completely shut off all of my other thoughts and focus on God for 30 minutes of every day and have this wonderful spiritual experience that I don't have any words to describe, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. That's not what it is. But it is like these slow steps to overcome these very weak points and these parts of my relationship with God that I really have neglected because I'm so afraid to go there. He really has been encouraging me to face that fear and showing me how he will strengthen me in that, and that it's okay if it's a process. Like he's with me in that process, and just because some days it was harder than others, some days I was able to read my Bible and meditate on a small phrase and have it matter to me, and the next day I was like, I literally cannot concentrate. I've been reading the same thing for like 20 minutes and I still like have no idea what it says. That's okay. He's still with me, and not to get stressed out and feel alone and abandoned and like his silence is oppressive, because he's not silent. He's right here. He loves me. The closest that I've ever felt to him is the truth of how close I am to him right now. And that's so encouraging for me to remember as I'm trying trying to be okay with the stillness, be okay with the quietness, and to know that he's right here with me, still in there, in the midst, speaking in a still small voice, and I must be still and quiet enough to hear it. That was kind of rambling and all over the place, but yeah, that's somewhere my brain has been at recently, the things that have been swirling through it. Thank you for watching. Goodbye until more interesting things happen.